Hold, hold. Let the second truck clear the bend. Nobody answered. They were already watching it happen through green glass and salt haze as the convoy slid into the kill zone below, black shapes moving between the cliffs and the sea. Engines low. Lights cut. Only the brief silver wash of moonlight on metal gave them away. Then the lead vehicle slowed for half a second longer than expected, and 33 U.S. Rangers lying in the rock above the Strait of Hormuz felt the plan tighten like wire. The coast at midnight was all friction. Knife-edged stone. Dust that clung to gloves and optics. Warm wind coming off the water, carrying salt, fuel, and the distant pulse of ship engines moving through one of the narrowest, most watched corridors on Earth. Out in the darkness, beyond the surf and tanker lanes, the strait looked calm. Up here on a broken shelf of volcanic rock overlooking the coastal road, it felt like the hinge of a larger war. That was why the convoy mattered. It was not just a string of armored trucks hugging the Iranian shoreline. It was movement under blackout conditions along a route that should have been dormant. Signals intercepts had hinted at a transfer, guidance components, hardened communications packages, maybe something smaller and more dangerous than either. If it crossed inland before dawn, it would vanish into bunkers, tunnels, warehouses, and denials. By sunrise, every radar operator, shipping captain, and embassy in the region could be living in the shadow of whatever rolled inside those vehicles tonight. The Rangers were chosen for that exact kind of work. Not spectacle, not noise. A force small enough to disappear into the coastline, disciplined enough to wait until every angle aligned, and violent enough to collapse a convoy before its escorts understood what direction the threat had come from. They had staged offshore in silence, running the route over and over under red light, tracing the road's curves from imagery and drone feeds, memorizing fallback routes, fields of fire, casualty drags, extraction points. Nothing about the mission was large. Everything about it was exact. Hours earlier, they had descended from a sea in low-profile craft, engines throttled down as they slipped beneath the cliffs. No floodlights, no shouted commands, just the slap of black water on hulls, the scrape of boots on wet stone, and the heavy, controlled movement of men carrying enough gear to fight hard and leave fast. Weapons were checked by touch, suppressors tightened, charges protected from salt spray. Radios kept to clip confirmations. Their team leader, a captain with a voice so flat it almost disappeared inside the headset, moved between pairs in the dark, tapping shoulders, checking spacing, making sure every man knew not only his own lane, but the next one if the first collapsed. By the time they climbed into position, the coast had gone dead quiet. Then the convoy appeared. First one vehicle, then three, then 6 shapes in staggered spacing, hugging the inside of the road, where the cliff overhang broke thermal contrast. The lead truck carried a roof gunner scanning the high ground with slow, practiced turns. The last vehicle lagged just enough to cover the rear. In between, 2 heavier carriers rode low on their axles, burdened by weight. That told the Rangers enough. Whatever the IRGC was moving, it was worth armor, blackout discipline, and midnight timing along a road exposed to sea and satellite alike. The captain waited until the center of the convoy entered the choke point where the road narrowed between the rock wall and a steep drop toward the surf. Then he spoke once. Execute. The ridge ignited in controlled flashes. The first shots did not sound like thunder. They sounded mechanical, clipped almost clean, until the road below broke open in sparks, shattered glass, and spraying gravel. The rear vehicle took the first disabling hit and slewed sideways, blocking the lane behind. A half-second later, the lead truck lost its front axle and buried its nose into stone. The convoy was sealed at both ends before the gunners inside understood they had been fixed in place. Then the heavier fire came. A shaped blast struck the second carrier and blew one door clear across the road. Smoke punched outward. Men spilled into it, some firing blind toward the ridge, others dragging equipment cases toward the cliff wall for cover. Tracers snapped upward, hard and red, cutting over the Rangers' heads and vanishing into the dark above the sea. Someone shouted in Farsi. Another voice screamed for dispersion. A gunner on the 4th truck tried to traverse onto the upper slope, but a Ranger farther east tracked him through the smoke and dropped him back into the turret ring. The captain sent 2 elements downhill. That was the most dangerous part. Shooting from the high ground was one thing. Closing on a live convoy in the dark over broken stone, while engines burned and ammunition cooked inside wrecked panels, was something else. The Rangers descended fast, boots sliding, knees absorbing impact, rifles tight to shoulder. Dust lifted around them. He hit them halfway down. The road below was now a corridor of wreckage, metal hissing, tires burning, fragments still ticking off the asphalt. The first Ranger to reach the lead truck cut left, using the disabled cab as temporary cover. Another dropped flat behind a boulder and covered the far shoulder, where two IRGC fighters had taken position behind a drainage berm. One short burst pinned them. A grenade bounced once under the berm and detonated low, sending dirt and concrete chips into the air. At the center of the road, the damaged carrier still held. Its side door was jammed but not destroyed. That meant the cargo compartment might still be intact. The breacher came forward with a strip charge already in hand, crouched low as rounds cracked over the hood of the burning truck beside him. He set it, backed off 3 steps, turned his shoulder, and the blast folded the door inward in a sheet of orange light and black smoke. The team surged through the opening before the metal stopped moving. Inside, everything narrowed. Red lamps, packed crates, hot air, a figure in the rear corner, lifting a carbine from between 2 cases. He went down under 2 muted shots. Another man lunged from a partition with a pistol and was driven back into the bulkhead. Then the compartment was theirs, except it wasn't. Because the crates were wrong. Not munitions. Not missiles. Communications gear, yes. Hardened containers, yes. But nested beneath them were sealed canisters marked for maritime transfer and a ruggedized case still plugged into a live satellite relay. One Ranger yanked the lid open, expecting documents, drives, maybe routing data. Instead, he saw a glowing screen with a moving map of the Gulf, layered with ship tracks, patrol zones, and coded corridor markings that updated in real time. The complication hit at once. "This is active," he snapped. At the same moment, a call came over the net from the Overwatch element on the ridge. Additional engines east. Multiple. Fast. The ambush had not hit an isolated convoy. It had struck one node inside a live network. The captain changed the mission in 3 breaths. One team shifted from destruction to collection. Another pivoted east to build a blocking position on the road. The casualty check was brutally short. One Ranger hit by fragmentation, conscious, bleeding through the sleeve, but moving. No one stopped. The electronic warfare specialist ripped the relay from its mount while another operator photographed every screen before smashing the display with the butt of his rifle. Charges meant for cargo destruction were redistributed under the remaining trucks. No time for a clean sweep now. Only time to break the convoy, seize what mattered and deny the rest. Then the new vehicles came into view around the far bend. Headlights off. Faster than the first convoy. Probably a reaction force, maybe a shadow escort that had stayed outside the original kill box. The Rangers met them with precise violence. The blocking element opened from cover along the eastern shoulder, stitching the road just ahead of the lead responder and forcing it hard into the cliff wall. Another truck braked too late and clipped the wreck, twisting sideways. Smoke canisters burst across the lane, filling the gap with white churn that glowed under muzzle flashes. In that confusion, the Rangers did not try to destroy every vehicle. They suppressed, delayed, and severed momentum. That was enough. The captain only needed seconds. Pull. The charges went in sequence. The center of the convoy lifted in overlapping blasts that punched fire into the cliff face and sent a pressure wave rolling down the coast. Burning fragments arced into the surf. One of the heavy carriers collapsed onto its frame. Another split open and burned from inside out. The road became a wall of heat and debris, cutting the response force off from the surviving cargo and from any clean pursuit. Then the Rangers were already moving. Back up the rock, across the shale shelf, down a different descent lane than the one they had used on approach. No clustering, no wasted words. The wounded Ranger was hauled between 2 men without breaking stride. Behind them, the convoy still burned in hard orange pools against the black coast, smoke climbing into the midnight air like a signal fire no one would claim. At the shoreline, the boats were waiting in the dark chop, bows nudging stone as the men came down in staggered files. The recovered case was passed hand to hand, kept dry, kept close. Offshore, a helicopter never crossed the beach, never lit the scene, but its presence lived in the radio net like a held breath, ready if the extraction broke apart. It didn't. Within minutes, the coast was shrinking behind them. The strait opened again, wide and deceptively calm, with commercial traffic still gliding through the darkness as if nothing had happened on the cliffs above. But inside the captured relay case, one last signal kept blinking after every other system had been killed. A route marker. A second track. Something moving farther south, beyond the burning convoy, beyond the road, out on the water. The captain looked at the screen once, then toward the tanker lanes. The ambush had ended. Whatever the convoy was feeding had not. And somewhere beyond the black horizon of Hormuz, another piece of the network was already turning.